Imagine waking up, not to an alarm clock, but to the distant roar of a creature that sees you as breakfast. For our Stone Age ancestors, this wasn't a nightmare. It was just Tuesday. This is the story of how they survived in a world of giants. Armed with nothing but stone, fire, and the will to see another sunrise, we're about to journey back tens of thousands of years to a time before written words, before metal, before the first seed was ever planted on purpose. This is the Paleolithic, the Old Stone Age, an epoch that stretches for more than 99% of human history. The world our ancestors knew was a place of immense danger and breathtaking beauty, a landscape sculpted by ice and stalked by colossal beasts. Survival wasn't a given. It was a daily, relentless struggle. Every sunrise was a victory, every meal a hard-won prize. But the people who lived in this time weren't simple or brutish. They were intelligent, innovative, and deeply connected to their world. They were nomads, traveling in small, tight-knit bands, their lives dictated by the rhythm of the seasons and the migration of the herds they relied on. They were the first artists, the first engineers, and the first mystics. They learned to master stone, to tame fire, and most importantly, to rely on each other. The story of the Stone Age isn't just a tale of hardship. It's the story of our own resilience, our ingenuity, and the birth of human society itself. It's the story of how cooperation, primitive tools, and the control of fire were the only things separating our ancestors from extinction. So, let's peel back the layers of time and step into the world of the first hunters and gatherers. The first light of dawn is a fragile thing, filtering weakly through the narrow entrance of a limestone cave or the gaps in a makeshift hut. For a small band of maybe 20 or 30 people, this is home. Not a permanent address, but a temporary sanctuary in a life defined by movement. These nomadic groups followed the great herds in the changing seasons, so their homes had to be adaptable. Sometimes, shelter was the overarching rock of a cliff face, a natural defense against wind and rain. In other places where no caves could be found, they built their own, using a framework of large mammoth bones, tusks, or sturdy branches. They would create a dome-like or conical structure, then cover it with thick, stitched animal hides. Inside, the floor might be covered with a layer of moss, reeds, and other soft plants, a simple but effective insulation against the cold ground. As the group stirs, the first and most critical task of the day begins, tending the fire. The hearth, often a simple ring of stones in the center of the dwelling or just outside, is the heart of the community. It's never allowed to die, carried from camp to camp as precious embers, maybe sheltered in a hollowed-out stone or a horn. Fire was a technology that fundamentally altered the human story. Its control, which archaeologists believe was mastered by our ancestors sometime between 400,000 and 1 million years ago. Fire provided warmth against the biting cold of the Ice Age nights. It was a beacon of light in the profound darkness, extending the day and allowing for social gathering and work to continue after sunset. Most critically, it was a formidable shield. The flickering flames and crackling sounds kept nocturnal predators like cave lions, hyenas, and bears at a safe distance, allowing for safer sleep. The fire is also the kitchen. While our earliest ancestors ate their food raw, the advent of cooking revolutionized their diet. Cooking meat and plants makes them easier to digest, unlocking more calories and nutrients. It also kills harmful bacteria and neutralizes toxins in certain plants, dramatically expanding the menu of what was safe to eat. Some anthropologists argue that this cooking hypothesis is a key reason for the development of the large energy-hungry brains that define our species. With the body spending less energy on digestion, more resources were freed up to fuel our growing minds. Around the central flame, the day's plan takes shape. There are no formal leaders, no chiefs, or kings. These early societies tended to be remarkably egalitarian. Decisions were likely made by consensus, with the wisdom of elders and the skills of experienced hunters and gatherers highly valued. Men and women performed different, but equally vital, tasks. While the men often took on the dangerous role of hunting large animals far from camp, the women were the primary gatherers, a task that required an encyclopedic knowledge of the local environment. They looked after the children, who would learn by watching and participating, absorbing the skills needed to survive. The social structure was flexible and built on kinship, but also on a broader sense of community where sharing and cooperation weren't just ideals, but essential survival strategies. In this harsh world, the group was everything. The morning is a quiet hum of activity, tools are checked, skins are scraped, and the first pangs of hunger remind everyone of the day's primary objective: find food. The hunt is about to begin. Before the hunters can depart, they have to be armed. The very name of this era, the Stone Age, tells you what their most crucial technology was made of. Stone, bone, and wood were the raw materials from which our ancestors fashioned an entire arsenal of tools. Each one an ingenious solution to a problem of survival. And making these tools wasn't a simple act of bashing rocks together. It was a highly skilled craft passed down through generations, a process we now call flint. The first technology, beginning over 2.5 million years ago, was basic but effective. These early old-down tools were often simple choppers and scrapers, created by striking a coarse stone with a hammerstone to knock off a few flakes and create a sharp, jagged edge. They were all-purpose implements, used for butchering animals, breaking bones to get at the rich marrow, and chopping wood. But as human minds grew, so did the sophistication of their toolkit. The preferred material for many tools was flint or chert hard stones that break in a predictable way. When struck correctly, the force travels through the stone in a cone shape, creating what's called a conchoidal fracture. This allows the napper to shear off razor-sharp flakes. The napper would sit, maybe with a protective leather pad on their leg, and begin. Using a hard hammerstone like a round piece of quartzite, they'd perform percussion flaking, striking the core to remove large flakes and establish a basic shape. This was rough, powerful work. Then came the refinement. Switching to a soft hammer, a piece of antler, bone, or dents would allow for more precise work, removing smaller, thinner flakes. The final, most delicate stage was pressure flaking. For this, the napper would use a pointed tool made of antler or a bone, pressing it against the edge of the stone with immense pressure. This would pop off tiny, controlled flakes, creating a serrated, incredibly sharp edge on a knife or a lethal point on a spearhead. Over millennia, this process led to over 100 different specialized instruments. There were hand axes for heavy chopping, long flint blades for slicing meat, scrapers for cleaning animal hides, and burins, or engravers for working with bone and wood. The development of the spear was again. Early spears were likely just sharpened sticks, maybe with a tip hardened in a fire, but attaching a finely crafted stone point made the weapon far more deadly. These points were meticulously made, sometimes with fluted indentations at the base to help secure them to a wooden shaft with animal sinew and natural adhesives like pine resin. Later innovations, appearing in the Upper Paleolithic, would include the otter. This was basically a lever, a piece of wood with a hook at one end that cradled the spear. By using the atlatl, a hunter could dramatically increase the range and velocity of their throw, allowing them to attack dangerous prey from a safer distance. But the innovation didn't stop with hunting. Tiny, sharp flint flakes were set into handles to create sickles for harvesting wild grains. Bone was carved into fishhooks and harpoons. Perhaps most impressively, our ancestors created bone needles. These tiny, delicate tools, some with eyes no bigger than a pin, tell us they weren't just wearing draped animal hides, but were tailoring them. They were cutting and stitching skins to create fitted clothing, tents, and bags, offering far better protection from the elements. This was the birth of engineering, of physics, of a technological tradition that would ultimately lead to everything we have today. Each tool, from the mightiest hand axe to the smallest needle, was a testament to their intelligence, patience, and unyielding drive to master their environment. Armed with this Stone Age technology, the hunters were ready to face the giants. The hunters move out from the camp as a small, focused team. The air is cold, and their breath hangs in wisps. Their target today is a giant of the Pleistocene world, a woolly mammoth. Hunting such an animal was an act of immense bravery and calculated risk. A single mammoth, standing over 10 feet tall at the shoulder and weighing up to 9 tons, could feed the entire band for weeks. Its hide would provide material for shelter and clothing, and its massive bones and tusks could be used to build hut frames or be carved into tools and ornaments. The reward was great, but so was the danger. This wasn't a simple chase. It was a carefully planned operation built on generations of knowledge. The hunters had to understand their prey intimately, its habits, its behavior, its strengths, and its weaknesses. Tracking was the first step. They read the story of the landscape, a footprint in the mud, a broken branch, a pile of fresh droppings. They moved with a quiet economy of motion, communicating with hand signals and hushed tones. A head-on confrontation with a healthy adult mammoth would have been suicidal. The key was cooperation and strategy. One common technique was the ambush. After tracking a mammoth, they might try to separate a younger or weaker individual from the group. Using fire and noise, they could create a panic, driving the terrified animal towards a pre-selected trap. This could be a natural feature like a narrow ravine, a bog where the beast would get stuck, or even a cliff edge, a technique famously used to hunt bison for thousands of years. In some cases, they may have even dug massive pit traps, camouflaging the opening and waiting for an unsuspecting animal to fall through. Another, more audacious strategy involved getting dangerously close. Instead of just throwing their spears, which might only feel like pinpricks to such a massive creature, the hunters may have used a pike hunting technique. As the mammoth charged, provoked by a lone, fast runner acting as a decoy, the other hunters would brace their long, heavy spears against the ground, the sharp stone tips angled upwards. The animal's own weight and momentum would do the work, driving the spear deep into its chest or underbelly. This tactic would generate far more force than the human arm ever could, turning the animal's greatest strength, its size and power, against it. Even with a successful strike, the fight was far from over. A wounded mammoth is an enraged and unpredictable force. The hunters had to be patient, following the bleeding animal from a safe distance, waiting for it to weaken and collapse. The final moments were fraught with danger, requiring close-range stabs with heavy spears to finish the job. The kill was a moment of both triumph and reverence. Nothing was wasted. The butchering process was another monumental task requiring the whole team. Using their sharp flint knives and heavy-duty cleavers, they would skin the animal and systematically carve up the mountain of meat. The prime cuts would be prepared for transport back to camp. It was too much to carry in one go, so some might be cached, stored in a cool place for later retrieval. The success of the hunt is a testament not to brute force, but to intelligence, planning, and above all, the power of the group. It was the ultimate expression of human cooperation, a life-or-death drama that played out across the frozen plains of the Stone Age. While the hunters were away on their perilous journey, life at the camp was anything but idle. The success of the band didn't rest solely on the hunters' shoulders. An equally crucial, and often more reliable, source of food came from the patient and knowledgeable work of the gatherers, typically the women, children, and elders of the group. Their domain was the area surrounding the camp, the meadows, forests, and stream banks that formed their temporary backyard. The old idea of Stone Age life as a purely man-the-hunter existence is a profound misunderstanding. Modern studies of surviving hunter-gatherer societies and archaeological evidence show that gathered foods, plants, nuts, seeds, and small prey often made up the bulk of the daily diet. While a big hunt provides a massive but unpredictable windfall, the daily act of gathering provides a steady, reliable stream of calories and nutrients. A gatherer's work required an extraordinary depth of knowledge. It was a living encyclopedia of botany, ecology, and even pharmacology, passed down from mother to daughter, from elder to child, over countless generations. They had to know which plants were edible, which were poisonous, and which had medicinal properties. They gathered wild berries in season, high in vitamins. They dug for starchy roots and tubers with specialized digging sticks, prying them from the tough soil to secure a vital source of carbs. They collected energy-rich nuts like acorns and pistachios, and harvested wild grains that could be ground into a rudimentary flour. This knowledge extended to medicine. Evidence, including the analysis of plant remains found at ancient sites and even in the dental plaque of Neanderthal teeth, shows that our ancestors were likely the world's first herbalists. They knew that certain leaves could be mashed into a poultice to soothe a wound, that specific barks could be chewed to relieve pain, and that some bitter plants had anti-inflammatory effects. They found and used plants that could help with everything from digestive ailments to fevers, a crucial skill in a world where a simple infection could be a death sentence. Gathering wasn't just limited to plants. Women and children would also hunt for smaller game, lizards, birds, and rodents. They would collect eggs from nests and dig for insects and grubs, which are surprisingly high in protein. Along coasts or rivers, they would catch fish using bone hooks and later nets woven from plant fibers, adding another important source of protein and healthy fats to their diet. The tools of the gatherer were just as important as the hunter's spear. A simple digging stick, a sharp flint knife for cutting stems, and woven baskets or bags for carrying the day's harvest. This work ensured that even if the hunters returned empty-handed, the band wouldn't go hungry. It highlights their profound interdependence within the group. The social structure wasn't a hierarchy, but a partnership. Men and women had different responsibilities, but their contributions were equally vital for collective survival. The food brought back by the gatherers would be shared among the entire group, a foundational principle of their society. It was this balance, this combination of the risky high-reward hunt and the reliable, steady work of gathering, that made their way of life so resilient for hundreds of thousands of years. The return of the hunters is a moment of great excitement. A successful hunt signals a time of feasting and security. The mammoth meat is brought into camp, and the communal work continues. Large pieces are roasted over the open fire, the smell of cooking fat filling the air and drawing everyone together. Other portions are cut into thin strips and smoked or dried, preserving it for the lean times that were sure to come. The fire, the hearth, is now more than just warmth and protection. It's the social and cultural center of the universe. It's around this fire that the community truly comes alive. Here the day's events are recounted not just as idle chatter, but as a vital exchange of information. The hunters describe the terrain they crossed, the behavior of the animals they saw, the near misses, and the successful strategies. This storytelling is an oral database, preserving and transmitting essential knowledge to the rest of the group, especially to the young boys who will one day become hunters themselves. Likewise, the gatherers share their own findings. A new patch of berries that will soon be ripe, the location of a medicinal herb, or the tracks of a predator seen too close to camp. This constant flow of information ensures the collective wisdom of the band grows and adapts. Around the fire, tools are made and repaired, the nappers sharing their skills as they shape a piece of flint into a perfect blade. Hides are scraped and stitched into clothing, the firelight glinting off polished bone needles. This nightly gathering is also where social bonds are forged. As we've seen, hunter-gatherer societies are often described as fiercely egalitarian. There were no formal laws or rulers, and a strong social ethic against hoarding or arrogance prevailed. Food was shared meticulously, ensuring that everyone, from the youngest child to the oldest elder, had a share. This wasn't just generosity, it was a survival insurance policy. A hunter who was successful today might be injured tomorrow, and would then depend on the success of others. This system created a powerful social safety net. Studies suggest that the structure of these bands was surprisingly flexible. It wasn't just a simple family unit. While kinship was important, bands were often a mix of related and unrelated individuals. It appears both men and women had a say in where the group lived, creating large, fluid social networks that extended across many different bands. This was crucial for sharing information, finding mates, and providing support in times of crisis. As darkness deepens, the sounds might shift. Someone might tap two bones together rhythmically. Another might pull out a flute, crafted from the hollow bone of a large bird, and begin to play a haunting, simple melody. Music, like art, was part of their world. It was a way to share emotions, tell stories, and feel connected. The hearth was a stage for the human drama, for arguments and reconciliations, for courtship and gossip, for mourning losses and celebrating successes. It was the place where children were raised by the whole village, and where the bonds that held their society together were tempered in the warmth of the flames. It was, in every sense of the word, home. Life in the Stone Age was a relentless focus on survival. Yet our ancestors were more than just survivors. They possessed minds capable of abstract thought, symbolism, and profound wonder. In the deepest, most inaccessible parts of caves, in the flickering they left behind the first evidence of the human spirit. Art, the magnificent cave paintings found in places like Lascaux and Chavit. They're a window into the minds of our distant relatives, a clue to what they believed about the world. Venturing into these caves was no casual trip. Many of the most stunning galleries are located far from the entrance, deep within the earth, reachable only by crawling through tight passages. This suggests these weren't living spaces, but sacred ones, portals to another world. The art itself is breathtaking. Using charcoal for black and mineral pigments like ochre for reds, yellows, and browns, they painted a vibrant zoo on the cave walls. Herds of horses, bison, aurochs, and deer thunder across the rock. But here's the strange part. These often weren't the animals they hunted. At Chalvit, the walls are dominated by fearsome predators, lions, panthers, bears, and rhinos. This challenges the simple explanation that the art was just hunting magic. So, what was it for? The true meaning is lost to time, but the theories are fascinating. Perhaps it was part of a shamanic ritual, an attempt to connect with the spirit world. The animals are often painted using the natural curves of the cave wall to give them a 3D, almost living quality. Abstract symbols, dots, lines, and geometric shapes are often mixed in, their meaning a complete mystery to us, but clearly part of a complex symbolic system. The human form is curiously rare, and when it does appear, it's often a simplified stick figure, sometimes part human, part animal. This may reflect a worldview we call animism, the belief that everything in the world has a spirit. In an animistic world, animals, plants, and rocks are all persons, just not human persons. Humans weren't masters of nature, but one part of a much larger, interconnected spiritual web. This artistic impulse wasn't just confined to caves. Our ancestors also created portable art, small objects they could carry with them. The most famous are the Venus figurines, small statuettes of female figures carved from stone, bone, or ivory. Found across a vast area from Siberia to Western Europe, they share common traits: exaggerated breasts, hips, and stomachs, with little detail on the face or limbs. For a long time, they were seen simply as fertility symbols. While fertility was definitely important, modern interpretations are more nuanced. They may have been religious icons, symbols of security and abundance, or even tools used in female-led rituals. Whatever their purpose, they show a deep concern with the power of the female form and the continuation of life. These achievements demonstrate that our ancestors' lives were rich with meaning. They sought to understand their world, to influence it through ritual, and to express their place within it through powerful symbols. They weren't just surviving, they were interpreting, building a culture, and asking the same fundamental questions about life, death, and the cosmos that we still ask today. They were laying the foundations not just for our technology but for our philosophy, our religion, and our art. The story of our Stone Age ancestors is written in stone tools, ancient bones, and on the walls of forgotten caves. Each new discovery adds another piece to this incredible puzzle of our shared human journey. If you find this journey into the deep past as fascinating as we do, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We have so many more stories to tell, exploring the moments that made us who we are today. The world of the Stone Age hunter-gatherer might seem impossibly remote, a lost chapter from the dawn of humanity, but their legacy isn't confined to museums. It's written in our DNA, embedded in our social instincts, and it forms the very bedrock of our civilization. For over 2.5 million years, this way of life wasn't an exception, it was the rule. It was the crucible that forged the human character. The men and women of the Stone Age were the ultimate pioneers. They adapted to dramatic climate shifts, from sweltering heat to the deep freeze of the ice ages. They spread out from Africa to populate every corner of the globe, a testament to their incredible resilience and ingenuity. Their nomadic lifestyle, driven by the search for food, pushed humanity across continents. Their greatest innovations weren't just physical tools, but social ones. They learned that the group was more powerful than the individual. They built societies based on cooperation, sharing, and a flexible egalitarianism that valued everyone's contribution. These strong social bonds, reinforced around the nightly campfire, were their most effective survival tool. They created the first social safety nets, laying the groundwork for the communities we live in today. Their minds were on fire with curiosity and creativity. They were the first scientists, observing the natural world with a keen eye. They were the first engineers, transforming stone, wood, and bone into a sophisticated toolkit. And they were the first artists and philosophers, venturing into the dark to paint their world and grapple with the mysteries of existence. While their lives were undoubtedly harsh, we shouldn't mistake their simplicity for a lack of complexity. They lived rich, meaningful lives, filled with social connection, artistic expression, and a deep spiritual relationship with the natural world. The end of the last ice age would eventually lead to agriculture and cities, but the long era of the hunter-gatherer wasn't just a prelude to civilization. It was the main event, the longest and most formative period of our existence. So, when we feel the impulse to gather with friends around a fire, when we work together to solve a problem, when we're moved by a piece of art or music, we are echoing the lives of our Stone Age ancestors. They survived in a world of giants so that we could one day build our own. Their struggle was our struggle, and their victory is our inheritance. The next time you hold a smooth stone in your hand, remember that for millions of years, it was the key to our survival, the raw material of our destiny, and the first chapter in the incredible story of us.